I'm going to continue reading because I found the eagle. He's sitting in the tree in the dead center of the shot. If you can see him, he's been eating fish with the birds. So I'm going to continue and hope that he stays in our shot. We get to enjoy this beautiful eagle here in Oklahoma. All right, chapter 8 continued, page 175, from the book Success with the Gentle Art of Verbal Self-Defense. Filling the 5 celebrity roles. You, as prominent local citizen. The material we've just gone through will make it easy for you to prepare effective briefs, talks for any situation, including the situation of a minor crisis. We have thoroughly covered the necessity for good voice quality and for body language that supports your words, as well as techniques for achieving both. Just one matter remains, and it has to do with the method you use to deliver your speech. It is my personal opinion, based on 50 years of experience as both speaker and listener, that you should feel absolutely free to read speeches aloud. I know this is not the usual position, but I am not giving you this advice without good reason. If the fees people pay to hear me speak are any indication, I am a good speaker. I think they must be, because I am not a public figure who would be booked to speak for my status alone, and I always read my talks and speeches. No one has ever complained yet or failed to book me again. No one evaluating my presentations has ever written, "She would have been a pleasure to listen to if she hadn't been reading her talk." If you are totally at ease speaking extemporaneously or from brief notes, by all means do that. I congratulate you. Otherwise, read your speech. I see speakers struggle through their talks in obvious distress, bungling and getting lost, backtracking and apologizing and wiping their fevered brows. I see speakers go droning on interminably while the audience grows more and more restless and resentful because they do not have their material organized and cannot find a way to bring the ordeal to a graceful end. I see speakers who have memorized their talks, but who, because they are not professional actors, deliver them like wooden dummies. Such memorized speeches are usually accompanied by a bizarre facial expression, because the speaker is reading the text off an internal screen, invisible to the rest of us. These people would be much better off reading from a page, and reading, done properly, doesn't have to be second best. Type or print your talk in bold black letters on white or yellow paper so that you will be able to read it easily without peering at it. Carry your pages openly so that it's clear that you intend to read and feel no reluctance about doing so. Look at the pages as often as you need to without making any attempt to hide what you're doing. Look your audience in the eye the rest of the time. As you finish each page, put it at the bottom of the stack. Or if you think your audience is restless, put it to one side so that they can see what a small stack remains to be read. Consider what this will mean to you. You won't have to worry about remembering what comes next. You won't have to worry about forgetting something important. You will be going through an experience that you've been able to rehearse thoroughly so that you can be certain you're doing it well. You won't have to worry about the speech being either too short or too long, because you will have read it in advance and timed it to be sure it fits your allotted time slot. You will have listened to your reading on your tape recorder and become satisfied with the way it sounds. so that you can relax and enjoy yourself, which makes you sound like a highly skilled speaker. When the speaker is suffering, the audience is in agony. By reading your speech, you can put an end to this problem. Your speech teacher might not approve, but your audience will. My eagle took off. The next category is you as available expert on subject X. Zoom out here so you can see that there is a big buzzard in this tree right in front of me there. I think you can see him. You as available expert on subject X. One way to enhance your public image is to build a reputation as an expert on some interesting subject. You will then be called on for public language about that subject whenever the occasion is suitable. And you will have an excuse ready at hand when you are called on for something outside your specialty. The only problem is the selection of your topic. It should always be a small topic, suitable for general audiences and not controversial. Excuse me. Choose antique violins, not antique musical instruments. Choose click languages around the world, not the bilobile glottonalized frictive consonant. And choose farmers in colonial America, not Satanists in colonial America. If there is some subject of general interest that you feel passionately about, something that genuinely interests you, then you would keep up with, whether you were asked to talk or write about it or not. The thing to do is to specialize in that subject. If that convenient solution doesn't present itself, I have a fail-safe suggestion. I suggest the venerable and always satisfying topic in Shakespeare. Medicine in Shakespeare. Lawyers in Shakespeare. Reptiles in Shakespeare. Public policy and political science in Shakespeare. War in Shakespeare. Shakespeare wrote about everything. And in the intervening years, someone has cataloged and commentaried every word. The material is so broadly applicable that it can be adapted for any audience whatsoever, including your child's grade school class. And the resources that you can find for your subject are not only vastly abundant, but easy to find and usually inexpensive. Once you've chosen your topic, buy the necessary basic books and subscribe to the essential publications so that you can stay current. If there is an organization associated with the topic, join it. You may not want to spend time participating, but paying your dues will keep you aware of conferences, new publications, and the like. This will allow you to build up a database from which to prepare your talks and articles. It will mean that when someone calls on you to produce public language at a moment's notice, you won't have to go through the "what on earth will I talk about" hassle. It will guarantee fulfillment of Dale Carnegie's sage recommendation that you should always know a great deal more about your subject than you're likely to need, and you will have solved, without extra effort, the problem that plagues your family and friends. Now, at gift-giving time, they can always choose something to add to your collection of materials on your chosen subject. This is a fringe benefit that should not be underestimated. As the years go by, and you do not have to face every birthday knowing that there will be yet one more box of handkerchiefs, one more boring tie, one more bottle of nondescript cologne, you'll appreciate it. I'm going to continue on. The next category is you as representative of your firm or group. The only thing different about this role is the limitation it places on your freedom as a private individual or a private expert on some subject of interest. You can say almost anything that isn't legally actionable. As the representative of a firm or other group, however, you must constantly keep in mind that everything you say reflects on others. Your own common sense and courtesy, your knowledge of the image the group prefers to maintain will guide you safely through this role. One thing you can do to make your public language safer is to use computer mode very extensively. Use generalizations and abstractions rather than examples that are specific. Throw in an occasional personal anecdote if it is appropriate. And if its cast of characters cannot be identified except for that, avoid I or you language. Talk of people instead. Use passive constructions in order to get rid of any identifiable doers in your sentences. Saying, chemical waste has been dumped in our harbors, does not require you to mention who did the dumping. Maintain neutral tone of voice and neutral body language in general. This may not keep your audience on the edge of their seats, but it does not have to be boring, and it will not harm the group message you must be worried about. Just write your talk or your article in the usual way, and then go back and translate as much of it into computer mode as you reasonably can, without robbing it of all vitality. The next category is you as media focus. The important difference between speaking for the media and other public speaking, including the talking that you do as part of an interview for later publication, has nothing to do with what you wear or how you look. You can always ask someone about that part of it. Just call up the studio or the publication's photographers and level. Tell them you want to look your best. Tell them you have no idea how to accomplish that. Ask for their advice and then do what they tell you to do. The important difference is that when you talk for the media, you give up your control over what you will say. No longer are you in a position to decide exactly which words you will use and exactly how long you will spend saying them. Now you have to deal with producers and directors and reporters and talk show hosts and camera crews, all with their own ideas about what's going to happen, and with the clout to put those ideas into practice. Never accept a media person's word that certain things will or will not happen. If it looks like a good story or a good picture, that promise will be forgotten. You may get an apology later, and it may be sincerely meant, but the damage will be done. Find out everything you can about the appearance or interview. Ask whether there will be people calling in by phone. Ask whether there will be commercial breaks and how many. Ask who will be on before and after you. Find out who will be introducing and interviewing you, and make a point of listening to this person while someone else is appearing, so that you can get a feeling for the style you will be facing. If you discover that the goal of the occasion is to make the guest look like a fool, withdraw your agreement to appear, unless you enjoy sparring with an adversary in public, in which case this event is tailor-made for you. When all of this has been done, you're ready to prepare for the occasion. Prepare exactly as you would prepare if you were going to go to court and testify. Write down every question you can imagine that you might be asked, and write thorough answers for each one. Tape them and listen to yourself. so you can be sure that you sound the way you want to sound. Do not memorize your answers. Just become very familiar with them. Take along your notes and your references, and don't hesitate to look at them if you really need to do so. And then you have 4 simple rules to follow. Number 1, when asked a question that you don't know the answer to, say, "I'm sorry, I do not know the answer to that question." The absolute worst thing that can happen after you admit you don't know something is that you can be criticized for not knowing or for forgetting. This is trivial by comparison with the awful things that can happen when you try to answer a question you don't know the answer to. Number 2, when asked a question that, for whatever reason, you don't want to answer, go to computer mode and stay there. Asked, "Why did your CEO accept a bribe last Tuesday night?" You say, "Few things are more mysterious than the motives of other people." Number 3, try. Try hard. Never to say, "That's a good question," or "I'm glad you asked me that." And try hard never to say, "No comment." And the final one, number 4, be aware that something will go wrong. It always does. One thing going wrong is acceptable and not to be worried about. When it happens, don't torment yourself about it. Most of the time, you'll be the only person who notices. And the last category out of these, you as Dragon Slayer. Once in a while, unless you are extraordinarily lucky, you're going to find yourself elected a spokesperson to explain, excuse, or in some other way deal with a mess. Messes are of 2 kinds: internal, like the Watergate burglary, and external, like the Tylenol tampering scare. The markedly different examples provided by Richard Nixon and Lee Iacocca have made it clear that the only way to handle the internal mess successfully is to transmit the following message: "You're right. It was a stupid thing to do. We're sorry we did it, and we promise you it will never happen again." If you are so unfortunate as to be personally responsible for the entire problem, you will have to say "I" instead of "we." If taking full responsibility is a good strategic move, say "I" instead of "we." Otherwise, don't change a thing. If Nixon had done this, he would have saved both himself and the nation a great deal of trouble and grief, and he would not have had to resign. The appropriate message for handling an external mess, one that happens to you or your group, and in which you are essentially blameless, differs by only a few words. It goes like this: "You're right. It was a terrible thing to have happen. We're sorry that it has happened, and we promise you we will do everything humanly possible to make sure that it never happens again." In both cases, internal or external, your goal is to transmit the same meta message: "Trust me, everything's going to be all right." Never lose track of the fact that the most important tool in your Dragon Slayer kit for this purpose is body language, your nonverbal communication, and its skimpy equivalent resources in written language. There is no better model than Ronald Reagan, described here in the January 9th, 1986, New York Times by R.W. Apple Jr. And here's what was said. To most television viewers who saw him emerge from behind a closed door, stride purposefully down a long, imperially furnished, red-carpeted corridor, then fairly bound onto a platform framed in the doorway to the East Room, much of the message, vigor, authority, relaxation, had been communicated before he spoke. Here, a little bit of notes here. I see that our eagle came back. He was just running off some birds. A little more light on him there. All right. In the notes section, there's just two. Because this is not a novel, and because I am not an unkind person, I am going to tell you what Paul Nelson was up to in scenario 11. Metamega wanted John Martin to be on that television talk show, but people knew he would refuse if asked directly. They asked Nelson to help, and he agreed. The way to get Martin to do the show, he told them, would be to pretend that Jack Harrington was going to do it, and that the choice was Nelson's idea. He assured them that it would work, and it did. As for Jack Harrington, who was in on the plan from the beginning, he was grateful not to have the duty and happy to be of service. Number 2. A twerk is a characteristic of language behavior that draws excessive attention to itself. See pages 242 through 246 for a discussion. Now the workout for Chapter 8. 1. According to communications consultant Arch Lustberg, there are 3 basic facial expressions. The closed face, when you frown, making a vertical line between your eyebrows. The open face, when your brows go up together quickly, making one or more horizontal lines across your forehead, like Ollie North. And the neutral face, on which only the mouth moves, like George Shultz. Practice using these 3 basics while you're talking, with the help of a mirror for feedback. Your goal is to become aware of what your facial muscles are doing and to get them under control consciously. Lustberg's remark appeared in Tips on Speaking. Lincoln didn't end at Gettysburg by saying thank you. In an interview in Physicians Financial News for April 30th of 1988, page large P, large B, 8. Number 2, listen to the McNeil-Lair News Hour, otherwise very capable Judy Woodruff, when she asks questions. Notice her voice quality, especially at the end of questions. Count the number of strong stresses she uses in questions. Notice your intonation. What is your evaluation? Are you going away again? Number 3, here are 2 examples of poor word choices. For each one, decide what the problem is and reword the example to fix it. A. We are grateful to God for his unspeakable gifts. That's in a rural church bulletin. And B. Our study is an attempt to answer part of this question. Unfortunately, its most critical component, whether people are sicker or remain in ill health longer when they do not receive medical care, cannot now be answered. From the uncompensated care by hospitals or public insurance for the poor, does it make a difference? By Robert J. Blinden et al. In the New England Journal of Medicine for May 1st, 1986, page 1161. Number 4, a language style tied to a particular role is called a register. To see what happens when the content of an essay and its register are deliberately mismatched, read Aristotle's Garage, A Mechanic's Metaphysics by Don Sharp in Harper's for March 1981, page 91 through 93. Sharp uses the academic register to discuss automobile brake repair, and the result is elegant. What do you think would happen if a piece went the other way? Using a blue-collar register to discuss an academic subject, would that be as effective? Number 5. Here is a finely crafted sentence with a double use of the rule of 3. Rewrite it so that it's ruined. To defend the infringement of liberty, to refuse to uphold the Constitution in a crisis, to support the alien methods of despotism, surely that is a republic in surely that in a republic is shameful, disgraceful, and unpatriotic. From Walter Karp in Republican Virtues in Harper's for July 1979, page 27. Oh, my Lord. Number 6. On page 235 of this book, I wrote the following sentence. The usefulness of the ability to detect signals of lying when they are present is obvious. The subject of that sentence is 14 words long, which overburdens the short-term memory. The sentence is awkward. Why would I write it that way instead of, it's obvious that the ability to detect signals of lying when they are present is useful. Hint, analyze the nominalizations used in the awkward version. Number 7. Rhetorical devices can accomplish astonishing things. Consider the one known as apophasis, shown in the examples below. A. I am much too polite to tell you that your socks don't match. B. I would certainly never mention to you the fact that you aren't PhD material. C. I wouldn't think of allowing you to find out how little respect your junior executives have for you. Can you write a rule for this structure? What's the pattern? Number 8. When you are asked an outrageous question, respond forcefully and confidently with something that is not a lie, is not a response to the question, and cannot be challenged. For example, when Jane Pauley asked a young Japanese teacher on an August 1985 Today Show whether she thought there was any justification for the dropping of the bombs on Hiroshima, the young woman smiled serenely and said, "As a teacher, it is my responsibility to provide the information about the facts. Make a list of the 5 questions you would most dread being asked in public, and write responses of this kind for each one." Number 9. Here are 2 questions you can use to practice your skills at public language. Both are guaranteed to produce spirited language. The first is my language, my own. The second is based on a quotation from an editorial by George D. Lundberg and Lawrence Bodine on page 3157 of the December 4th, 1987 issue of the Journal of the American Medical Association. Either one will serve well as a subject to talk about when you are prepared to tape to judge your own voice quality by A. Would you be willing to go into combat beside a female soldier? Why or why not? And B. Doctors and lawyers in our society have benefited greatly from the abundant opportunities made available to them from the fruits of our plenty. We believe that all doctors and all lawyers, as a matter of ethics and good faith, should contribute a significant percentage of their total professional efforts without expectation of final remuneration. We believe that 50 hours a year, or roughly 1 week of time, is an appropriate minimum amount. Do you agree? Why or why not? Phew. The hell of a sentence. You might have to replay that one. All right, we're down to the last 2. Number 10. Does "don't worry" mean the same thing as "let not your heart be troubled"? If not, what's the meaning's difference? 11. And the final one. For a detailed discussion of current knowledge about judging emotions from listening to voices, read Vocal Indicators of Psychological Stress by Harry Hollian in Annals of the New York Academy of Science for 1980, pages 47 through 72. Hollian takes up the use of judgments based on voice in law enforcement, healthcare, forensic medicine, aviation, etc., and provides an excellent bibliography. All right, and the very last little piece is sight bites. Number 1, to describe perceptual phenomena, we in America use the term extrasensory perception, or ESP. Russians, however, speak of biological information or bioinformation. Much can be said for the wisdom of this choice, for as several American scientists have noted, Any inference that events might be extrasensory or beyond the range of the senses creates immediate hostility. From Parapsychology in the USSR by Stanley Krippner and Richard Davidson in Saturday Review for March 18th of 1972, page 57. Number 2. I am 6'2", and when I go out on the campaign trail, people say, "We thought you were a short guy." By George Bush, quoted in an interview titled, "I've Been Underestimated," in Time magazine for August 22nd, 1988, page 20. Number 3. All politicians say as little as they can. Only the very greatest can get away with saying nothing. Abraham Lincoln in his 1860 campaign did not make a single speech. From Hooray for Politicians by Gary Willis in Harper's for September of 1975, page 46. Number 4. Often the best way to disarm a hostile press is to embrace them. Love bombing, some call it. From Nancy Steals the Show by Hedrick Smith in Advertising Age for June 13th of 1988, page 38. 5. As a hypothetical illustration, consider Lincoln's Gettysburg Address as it might have been written by Dwight Eisenhower, probably beginning something like 87 years ago, I think it was. From Problem of Style in Presidential Discourse by Ronald H. Carpenter, excuse me, in Concepts in Communication, edited by Jimmy D. Trent, Judith S. Trent, and Daniel J. O'Neill, Allen and Bacon, Inc., 1973, page 110. And the final one and the complete end of chapter 8, number 6. When I was a boy, I was told anybody could become president. I'm beginning to believe it. Attributed to Clarence Darrow. Try this sentence with a variety of different intonations and notice how the meaning changes as you go along and how hard it is to indicate those differences in written language. I'm going to read that sentence one last time. When I was a girl, I was told anybody could become president. I'm beginning to believe it. Thank you for listening. We made it through all of chapter 8. I appreciate you.